my candidacy is the only candidacy that has anything to say about Africa.
Let's talk about tourism and the creative industry.
You see, tourism is a very complex endeavor. It's a service which requires everything else to be in place. 100 million tourists in Africa. 100 billion worth of investment, 10 million new jobs and 1 million upskilling. Well, I'm glad. Well, we'll switch places.
I mean, I'm thinking about it.
UN tourism can play a much bigger role than the current, more or less, marketing role that it plays. African people should travel in Africa, first and foremost.
Hello everyone. How are you guys doing? This is My Africa Show. As always, we're back with an amazing guest to have a very conscious conversation about our Africa. Our today's guest is, okay guys, hold on, I'm telling you, former Minister of Tourism in Greece and former Deputy Minister of Finance of Greece, as well as Member of Parliament, and here comes the big part, UN tourism candidate for SNG position. Thank you so much for coming. I am so happy that we're having this conversation, and welcome to Ethiopia.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this beautiful show and to allow me to come to Ethiopia, which is such a beautiful country. Only a few hours here, and I can see why people are in love with Ethiopia.
Yeah, so congratulations for being one of the candidates for SNG position. But before we go on to the tourism and all the other topics that we're ready to discuss on, let's get to know who you. Please introduce yourself and a little bit about your background
Sure.
for our audience.
Yeah. Well, I'm a software engineer by training. I've worked 20 years in the private sector in large, mainly financial companies, always on the IT side. So that's one part of my CV that I bring to this candidacy, that I can understand and know the digital side of things, which is shaping all the changes that we were feeling in the 21st century. My second part is, of course, the fact that I entered into politics. So I left the private sector to enter into politics. It's a big story how this happened, but it did. And since 2019, our party has the government in Greece, so already 6 years now. I was Minister of Tourism during the most difficult period for everyone during COVID. Greece managed to, we took a lot of initiatives, digital certificates, opening the borders faster than anyone else, supporting the cruising industry, et cetera, so many initiatives. And this led to the recognition by WTTC that Greece was the best country to deal with COVID in the field of tourism. So that was a big accolade and gave us a lot of experience on connectivity and stuff. And finally, in the past year, I was the Deputy Minister of Finance. Before that, I was, for 10 years ago, the head of the tax office of Greece before entering politics. And I reformed the tax administration of Greece. It was notoriously inefficient, and it became digital first, and it became very efficient. And as a Deputy Minister of Tourism, I reformed the taxation of the tax system of Greece as well. So I have a technocratic experience and a political experience to bring to the table. I have the reform drive. Wherever I go, I change things. I want to push things forward towards the future. And through that, I bring all that to the table for the position of SG of UN Tourism.
So I feel like tourism is such a huge topic, right?
Indeed.
And we can use it in different forms. So before we go into the candidate and to all the juicy part of the conversation, let's talk about tourism and the creative industry, which can be aligned very smoothly, right?
Sure.
So tell us about it. Like, how do you think we can use the creative industry when it comes to promoting and making sure that tourism is one respected and well-developed sector?
Well, the creative industry has a lot of power. It shapes the images of people. We love watching TV, we love watching films and movies and series. And we are subconsciously have this need and the feeling to enter the picture, to go at the place that we're seeing. So this is the big power of the creative industry vis-a-vis tourism. So you see a movie about Madrid, you want to go to Madrid. You see a movie in Addis Ababa, you want to go there and feel the same, have the same feeling that you see from the screen. And what countries have done, Greece has done that. Before, for example, in our neighborhood, Bulgaria was very successful, is to actually create structured incentives for films and series to be shot in the country. Ethiopia has such unique landscapes and unique pictures to convey. And there are always scripts and scenarios that would, make sense to incorporate those kind of pictures and those kind of landscapes. So when those places and those areas are in areas that there is infrastructure for people to come, so there are hotels, there are roads, or there's flights or whatever. So if the movie is set in a place where there is infrastructure to accept people, then immediately you will see an increase in the number of people that go to that place. There are different cultures that get affected less or more. For example, Indians, they love the movies. As soon as they see a movie, they all travel to that place. It's not exactly the same with the Europeans. Europeans are more, they take other factors into account when they choose where to go. So there are different
factors.
Sure, different factors. But generally speaking, there is always a good relationship and a good connection between the creative industry and tourism.
Yes, indeed. Especially when you think about movies, the major one, but also music, right?
Sure.
Because you get to explain about that country through your lyrics, rhythm, and at the same time the video clip, which is very crucial, right?
Correct.
So now let's talk about UN Tourism candidate for SNG position. So what is this about? Like, tell us the detail.
Sure. Sure. This is a very exciting time. UN Tourism is the organization under the United Nations that's tasked into helping countries develop the touristic industries, the touristic communities, in such a way that the Sustainable Development Goals of UN are promoted, so sustainable tourism. I'd like to talk about the regenerative tourism, which is to take it one further step ahead, but for the purpose of our discussion, sustainable is a fine word. UN Tourism can play a big role in helping countries. Currently, I feel, and our country feels, that's why we are putting forward, Greece is putting forward this candidacy in my name. We feel that there's a lot more that can be done to help the countries develop their strategies in the field of tourism. You see, tourism is a very complex endeavor. It's a service which requires everything else to be in place. You need to have connectivity in your mobile phone, otherwise it's not easy to go to a country. You need to have some sort of trust that if you have a health issue, it can be dealt with. You need to feel more or less secure. You cannot go to a war zone and expect to have tourism.
Yes.
So all those things have to be in place for tourism to be able to be developed. And of course, it requires a lot of funding for infrastructure, airports, ports, roads, railways sometimes, in order for the touristic product to be developed. And a lot of private funding as well, because hotels, etc., need private funding. So all in all, I would say that UN Tourism can play a much bigger role than the current, more or less, marketing role that it plays. It can be a strategic partner of Ethiopia, of Nigeria, of Kenya, of Morocco, Ghana, and South Africa, to help them create, always respecting their priorities, the governmental dimensions that they want to pursue, the way they want to build the future of the country. But we can bring in the expertise, the ability to create a strategic plan, a long-term 3, 5, 7-year plan, 10 years time sometimes, and bring stability in this industry, which, if it thrives, it has the potential to lift people out of the poverty, to lift communities, villages out of their difficult times, and actually bring prosperity to all the disadvantaged, the young people, women, people with disabilities. Everyone can benefit from tourism.
Which is very important.
Correct.
Exactly. So you're not the only candidate. There are also other candidates. So I want to know, because I cannot ask anyone else but you. I want to know what makes, what are the things that you're planning to do, especially in regards to Africa, because Africa is an explored market, especially when we talk about tourism, because we can sell the food, the culture, the dance, the music, and all of that. So what makes your
candidacy
exactly
more unique and more attuned to Africa? Well,
Thank you.
I'm glad. Well, we'll switch.
I mean, I'm thinking about it.
No, I'm really. My candidacy is the only candidacy that has anything to say about Africa. I have a very unique and very specific plan. I call it Mission 100, that I want to ensure that we have, in the 4 years of my tenure, 100 million tourists in Africa. 100 billion worth of investment, 10 million new jobs, and 1 million upskilling. So those are very specific and clear targets, KPIs if you like. And I would like the ministers of tourism of the African nations to come together, sit in the same table. As such, I think the cooperation with the African Union can be pivotal in that, but also our member states, of course, and to ensure that we all own those targets and we do what we have to do in each and every one in our countries to further the field of education, to ensure that we have the right connectivity among African nations, because that's also something that's overlooked. Africa has the fastest growing middle class in the world. So every middle class in every region of the world travels. They want to do tourism. So African people should travel in Africa first and foremost, like Europeans travel to Europe and Asians to Asia. And as soon as they see the other countries of the region, then they venture out and go further out, etc. And of course, to increase as well the connectivity and the awareness of further out sources of tourists for the African continent. Now, there are a lot of requirements for this to happen, so I'm not downplaying the difficulty of implementation, but I think the important thing is to have the political will, to have the buy-in of the governments, and through that, there's nothing that the African nations cannot do. I'm certain about that.
Yes, and I think a lot of people are feel, especially when it comes to tourism and other even sectors, we feel like people plan, but is it when it comes to the action, you be like, okay, is it really going to happen? So what are the legacies that you're planning to leave behind or be able to do to actually implement under the leadership of UN Tourism? Yeah. Tell us about that. I think that's important.
Sure. Of course it's important. And this is a great question because it leads me to explain what are the 3 dimensions of my statement of intent. The first dimension is to actually transform the organization, to make it transparent, to have KPIs, to be responsive to the needs of the member states. So Ethiopia and the other nations, member states of the organization have to take back control of the organization, which currently is not the case. So that's the first dimension, because we cannot do anything unless the organization is healthy. So that's the first target. The second target is that we need to unite. Unity is the second dimension of my program. Why do I say that? Because unity is difficult, so we have to be proactive. We have to put it as a goal. Intra-regional unity is important. If we are to talk about common visa schemes, if we are to talk about common roaming for our phones among the countries, if we are to talk about things that perhaps in Europe, through the European Union legislation, we take for granted, but of course in other regions of the world are not, then we need to take those best practices and sit down on the same table and communicate and coordinate and take action together. So unity is important. And of course, the second part of unity, the intra-regional unity between Europe and Africa, between the Middle East and Africa, between the other regions and Africa, is important, because that's the only way that we can further the goals, the long-term goals. Long-term problems are too big for one region or for one country. We have to all work together, and the SDGs are such lofty goals that we have to implement together. I mean, to give you an example, there's no way that the African development cannot come unless there's also funding and investment from the other regions. So this kind of flow of investment, of benefits, etc., is crucial. And finally, the third dimension of my program is growth. We need to focus on growth. We need to look at the needs of African destinations and of other destinations, emerging destinations that have something to offer, like Africa has. You mentioned before dancing, culture, food, the tribal traditions that are so alien and so different to the way of thinking of the Western man and woman. So those kind of things are so alluring, and they actually throw us off the comfort zone and make us think very, very differently and come together ultimately. This is the power of tourism. Tourism is a bridge between two people, you and me, that perhaps in many ways we have nothing in common. We live in different countries and in different circumstances, but we can come together and we can talk and discuss things in front of a fire, eating bread and some
meat.
Some fruit, and meat as well, that kind of thing, and drinking some drinks that we enjoy. So basically, that's a big power, and growth can help the disadvantaged and the emerging destinations on one hand, and growth has to be managed and done correctly for the more advanced destinations in Greece and in other areas where tourism is very, very well advanced. And I'm happy to bring all that expertise and all that experience into the position of SG, of UN Tourism. The issues of managing the flows, of making the experience better because the number of people is too large in some days and in some destinations. That also requires very careful planning and specific effort, and UN Tourism can be the partner of those developed destinations in helping them deal with those issues.
Oh, wow. Okay, that explanation is like a cold water in the desert.
Yeah.
Do you know the feeling?
What
it's
a
like
wonderful image.
You're thirsty.
Thank you.
Such a precise, clear, amazing explanation. I know you're really tired, so I don't want to tire you even more. But the last question, one of the few questions actually, I'll be having one more question. So this question is, because I know you've been traveling across Africa, and that shows how, because we were talking about this off rec, and you were telling me because that's a way of showing respect.
Correct.
For the honors. So while traveling across Africa, what is it, especially as a former Minister of Tourism of Greece, you know how powerful tourism can be.
Sure.
So what is it that you have noticed from African countries, even from this tour and
Sure.
your previous tours? What is it that you have seen, the strength and the weakness?
Sure. Well, I mean, the first thing you notice is what a beautiful, wonderful environment you see here when you come. And also the diversity of the images. You go to one country, you go to Tanzania, you go to Nigeria, you go to South Africa, and you can see totally different landscapes and totally different dresses and totally different people, different hats and whatnot. So this diversity, this richness, this depth is amazing, and I think it's a sight to behold, and it can only be a huge magnet for every person living on Earth. The second thing to notice is how much untapped potential exists. That there are loads and loads of things that someone can do, but a lot of those things are not developed enough in order to be mature enough to be able to attract many, many people, to have the exact infrastructure, to have enough hotels, to have enough guides, to have enough people, etc., etc. The third thing I notice is one of the advantages of Africa is this huge young population. You are so young people. I mean, especially compared from coming from Europe, you can see that difference immediately. You feel the vibe, you feel the energy in the air in Addis Ababa. The young people, it's amazing. But at the same time, you feel that we need to do a lot in order to empower that youth. I'm not sure that they see and they have the career paths, the life journeys, the paths in front of them that will bring them prosperity. And I feel that tourism has a lot to offer in that respect. There are many jobs that can be had in the field of tourism. There's, with small businesses and small companies, not necessarily the huge multinationals, that can make them powerful compared to the current circumstances. And finally, the fact that we need a lot more cooperation. I've seen such huge differences in everything, from the mobile connectivity to the kind of service that you see if in one country or the other. So there's a lot to be done in that respect to ensure that there's enough of educational standards, etc., to provide the level of service that good tourists expect when they come to a place, and that will attract them to come back again and again.
Exactly, that is so true. Thank you so much for all the conversation, and I wish you all the best. But if there is anything else that you'd love to say, that you'd love to add, let me give you the chance, and you can say it to our audience.
Excellent. Well, I want to say that I feel very privileged and blessed to be in this wonderful country. It's my first time, but certainly it won't be the last. I think through Addis Ababa and through the fact that the African Union is based here, there's a lot of work that needs to be done with the cooperation of Ethiopia in order to achieve those very ambitious goals that I'm setting for my term as Secretary General of UN Tourism, but goals that are a requirement if we are to transform Africa from a recipient of aid, if you like, to a driver for growth of tourism. Tourism has to work for Africa and has to come from Africa, from the soul of Africa.
Wow, you're really good at giving speech.
Oh, thank you.
For Africa, from Africa. Catch that. By the way, have you learned any Amharic word?
Not yet. So you give me my first one.
Okay, so to say thank you, which is a very common one, you say amasaganalo.
Amasakanalo.
Which means you're welcome. It's okay.
Okay, amasakanalo.
All right. So guys, I hope you enjoyed our coffee time of My Africa show. Thank you so much for staying with us, and I'm so happy that we get to have this conversation, and we should understand the value that we have, and all this work that is happening right now is nothing as long as we're not willing to be cooperative and open and have the space for the change that we want in our continent. Again, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next week. Till then, goodbye.